Neglecting maintenance isn't just a hassle, it can cost you thousands in repair and damage tenant relationships. Staying on top of repairs is critical for any landlord. Now, maintenance is more than just keeping the property looking good, it's all about preserving the value of your investment and ensuring tenant satisfaction. Regular maintenance prevents costly emergencies down the road, but here's the risk. If you don't stay proactive with maintenance, small issues can quickly become expensive disasters, tenants can be frustrated, and the value of your property will take a hit. Let's talk about how you can manage maintenance effectively and avoid these pitfalls. So before we dive in, I always like to share a story about the time that I might have ignored a small maintenance issue, and that turned into a huge costly problem. These are lessons. I mean, there's so many. And if you're listening to this and you're a landlord, we all do it. When I was trying to write up the content for this episode, I was trying to think of what story could I tell for maintenance because there's just so many. I'm going to talk about the leaking toilet, and I don't mean leaking on the floor. What I mean is that little hissing sound, okay? And this has happened multiple times. So let's say that, and you might not even hear it because you're not living at the property, but let's assume that you have a tenant that is responsible and says, hey, Garret, you know what? So once in a while, my tenant kind of hisses and I don't know what's going on. And you're like, yeah, okay, I'm busy, got my day job, whatever it is, just had a small child. Or you go to the property and you're collecting rent, or maybe you're getting a meter reading and you happen to hear that the toilet is hissing. That might seem very small, but that toilet hissing means that the flapper in the toilet, in the tank at the back, is slowly letting water go down the drain, literally going down the drain. And the hissing that you hear is when the plumbing supply, that float or whatever is in that toilet tank, is now refilling, refilling that toilet. A little bit of small hissing can be literally 20, 25 bucks a day. So again, you know how I like to do my math. If you do 20 bucks a day times 30 days, it's 600 bucks a month. And let's say that you completely forgot about it and the tenant is like, well, Garret doesn't care. I don't care. I told him about it. 600 times a year, 12 months, 6 times 12, $7,200, okay? For what effectively is a $5 part at Home Depot and 2 minutes to change it, okay? If that. So that's my story. Let's talk about routine versus emergency maintenance, okay? Now, emergencies are going to be emergencies, but routine maintenance is probably what's going to prevent those emergencies. Now, how do you prevent emergencies? Regular inspections, okay? What can you inspect? How often should you be inspecting? And well, it really depends on your laws. Here in Manitoba, we are allowed to go through a property for an inspection about 3 times per year. At least here, they don't let us do more than 3 times because they're worried that we're going to be bothering the tenant. And again, the tenants have rights to, what is the quote that they have in the Act? Clean, quiet enjoyment. So you want to make sure that you're doing regular inspections. Now, you can put these, they don't have to be the same inspection, maybe in the first quarter. Well, that's not quarterly, but let's say after every 4 months, so that's 3 times a year, you do your furnace inspection. Maybe just before the winter. Maybe in the spring, you're inspecting the sump pump. There's other things, okay? How often are you flushing your hot water tank? Okay, hot water tanks get sediment in the bottom, especially if it's a gas hot water tank. There's a flame building up. You've got all this sediment. There's air pockets that can occur. And essentially now the flame of that hot water tank is heating up bare metal underneath a hot pocket instead of heating up water, which effectively is welding a hole in the bottom of your hot water tank. That hot water tank goes eventually, leaking everywhere in the basement. Maybe the tenant happens to be at the cottage that weekend, and now there's a flood and an insurance claim. So hot water tanks, sump pumps, turning them off, turning them on, putting the sump hose out in the spring, unwrapping it up, making sure it doesn't burst in the fall, making sure you unplug your sump pump. There's just a ton of things. Roofing inspections, looking up, making sure that your roof, the shingles aren't curling. Maybe you have an eaves trough cleaning person that can go and clean the eaves troughs. Maybe while they're up there, they can see if anything's loose or leaking. Think about, at least up here in winter, if you have a leaking eaves trough that's dripping, that's going to turn into icicles. That's going to drip on your sidewalk. That is going to cause at least could be an injury at the very worst. At the very best, it's going to cause a complaint and another phone call to you, and maybe you having to run down there and put some sand and salt, when really, if you already had somebody cleaning those eaves, that would be better. If you don't clean those eaves troughs, you're going to end up with ice damming, which again, depending where you're listening, you might not even have eaves troughs in some places in warm climates. But up here in Canada, we have eaves troughs, which can fill with leaves. That means that you're going to get no drainage, okay? You're going to get ice that builds up in that eaves trough, and then that's going to back up underneath the shingles with progressive freeze-thaw cycles. And when the ice goes underneath that shingle, then in the spring, it melts, and guess what? It's already against the raw boards of your roof decking, and then it's going to go straight into the attic, straight down into your unit, and it's going to wreck the ceiling in some way, shape, or form. There could be mold, all those types of things. So I'm just mentioning just a few things. Plumbing inspections, making sure that nothing's leaking. I mean, even if you pay a plumber and you're not doing it yourself once a year, and that plumber charges you $200, what I had just mentioned, $7,200 for water bills in that leaking toilet versus $200. Let's say that you own a multifamily property, 3-story walk-up, I don't know, 30 units, okay? So if you have that, congratulations, that's amazing. What kind of inspections should you be doing on a larger apartment block? Lots of things. Roofing inspections, building envelope. You want to make sure that the grounds are clean. You want to make sure that there aren't things that are starting to leak, run into the foundation of the building, start making, shifting, parking lot sweeping, line repainting, fire escapes. Maybe you want to make sure that those fire escapes are in good working order. Electrical connections from those power lines that are running to the building. Sometimes on large apartment blocks, those can also be worn, cause a hazard. Maybe they're a little bit too close to a fire escape. Somebody can get electrocuted. For the building envelope and the roof, sometimes what we'll do for our clients is we'll actually hire, a certified inspector that's good at doing actual commercial buildings. And sometimes you can get referrals for this from your network of appraisers, okay? And they can give you a comprehensive report. If you're a property manager that's listening to this like we are, you can take that report and you can build a set of preventive maintenance budget line items for your client. If you own the apartment block, it's still money well spent. If you spend $350 to $500 on one of these building envelope inspections, it's going to honestly come back and save you money, because if they detect that there's some kind of asphalt, something to do, some kind of vent on that, maybe it's a tar and gravel roof, and something has let go, and that could be a $2,000 repair. Your $350 for that inspection that identifies that. Now you can go up, you can get a roofer in there and do everything all at once. Is still going to save you thousands of potential dollars, okay? Number two, the second thing is build a network of trusted contractors. Now, how in the world can you find trusted contractors? Maybe you're frustrated like I used to be. Honestly, they're out there. One good contractor, once you find a good contractor, is going to know another good contractor. Where do you find these people? You could find them on Kijiji and Facebook, potentially, but usually I'm going to find them from other professionals, okay? Now, if you don't know exactly where to start, I would start with people like building inspectors, appraisers, people that seem to know contractors. You could start with realtors. They know contractors that have done some really good work for their clients. You could start with property managers, okay? Property managers like our company, we have to have trusted contractors or we literally cannot perform our jobs properly, okay? Once you find one or two contractors, have a conversation with them. Again, like attracts like. Let's say you have a really good HVAC person, they're probably going to know a really good plumber and they're probably going to know a really good electrician, okay? All right, documenting repairs. You want to make sure you keep records of all your maintenance that happens. You want to keep that somewhere. Simplistic version would be in an Excel spreadsheet for every single one of your properties. A more sophisticated version could be maybe just recording it as a note in QuickBooks. Now, I said maintenance tasks. Obviously, if you're paying for maintenance and you have some kind of accounting program, that's a little bit easier to do, but maybe you want to have some kind of task management system, maybe your tenants. Again, lots of apps out there. Some are free. Maybe you have property management software. It is easier to have everything all in one. So if I'm giving you any advice from this Landlord Pal podcast, get some decent software, ideally one that can do everything. Accounting, maybe it has a tenant portal that tenants can pay their rent. Maybe there's a place where they can submit a maintenance ticket. You get that text directly to your phone. Maybe, and the more sophisticated ones, you can communicate directly with them. You can assign it to a contractor that's in your network, and then they can actually upload the bill. Okay, so if you want any recommendations, I don't want to put those on the air here because it wouldn't be really fair to my other contractors. Just reach out to us. We'd be happy to give you some advice on that. And if we're not in your area, we probably know lots of people in your area anyways, and we can at least get you started in the right direction. So I talked about routine maintenance, talked about documenting repairs. Let's talk about emergencies. What is an emergency? Well, here at Upper Edge Property Management, we actually define emergencies right in our management agreement as a fire, a no heat, a water leak, a tenant's locked out, or it's a problem with safety equipment like a carbon monoxide or a smoke detector. How do you handle these things? Have an emergency protocol. Let's take a water leak, okay? Just a simple diagram, even on a napkin that's written out for yourself so you know a flow chart. Okay, tenant calls in with a plumbing leak. Okay, well, what is a plumbing leak? Well, let's ask the question. When you speak to the tenant, interview them, ask them these questions. Don't just go to the property because you don't even know how serious it is. So plumbing leak is one that we use, okay, in our company. Ask the question, is it an active leak or passive leak? Well, what do you mean? Well, is it happening because somebody is running a tap somewhere? So, for example, my ceiling is leaking in my basement. Okay, well, what were you doing when it happened? Well, my wife took a shower and it happens every time I shower. Okay, so that's a plumbing emergency, but it's not an active leak compared to what happened. Where is it leaking? Oh, my ceiling underneath my main bathroom is leaking. Well, how bad is it leaking? Oh, it's gushing water. Okay, were you doing anything? No, we weren't doing anything. All of a sudden it started gushing water. Well, now you know a supply pipe somewhere is leaking water and you have to get there as quick as humanly possible. Probably direct the tenant to shut the water off to the building or the home, versus just don't take a shower until I can get a plumber there to determine what's happening. Don't flush that toilet if it's leaking every single time there's a flush toilet. Maybe the water is leaking from the kitchen ceiling. Okay, what's above your ceiling? Well, it's a bungalow, it's a one-story house. There's nothing above my kitchen ceiling. So now it's a water leak, but it's not a plumbing leak. It's still an emergency, but it's not a plumbing emergency because there's nothing up there but a roof. Maybe now you're calling a roofer. I had just mentioned on this very podcast, ice damming. Then you have to think to yourself, okay, have we had a warm spell? What season is it? Oh, it's March and all the snow is now starting to melt that is accumulated over the winter. Okay, it's probably ice damming. Send a roofer, get them to assess, remove all of the snow and the ice around that area. Hopefully it dries out. After it dries out, now you have to go and send another set of contractors like mold remediation specialists, maybe the insurance company, maybe just a contractor that's going to cut out that, maybe it's a bowed piece of drywall, soggy drywall, whatever it is on that ceiling. Okay, so hopefully you've been taking notes here. I can't go through everything. That I would encourage you maybe to check out our Rent It Yourself community. In that community, we actually go through a lot of these things in our free courses in that community. And of course, you can communicate and meet and network with like-minded, self-managing property owners. But at any rate, what we want to do here, and I'm just going to recap this episode, proactive maintenance is an investment that pays off in tenant satisfaction, long-term property value, peace of mind, increase in property value, okay? Decrease in expenses because you're preventing things before they happen. So I'd encourage you to stay organized with your maintenance schedules and contractor contacts. Now, to keep you stay organized, I'd encourage you to also download our property maintenance tracker. I mentioned before that you want to have some kind of system. This is just a tool, it's not full software, but at least it's going to help you plan and track all of your preventative maintenance very easily. So hit us up for that. We'd be happy to send that to you. And for now, and until next week, this is Landlord Pal signing out. Thanks for watching.